All right, welcome back. Wow, I didn't think I was going to go live today. I figured we just did the long one yesterday, and then I was just like Friday, Saturday, and then maybe I'll come back on Sunday and then just continue, doing lives and videos and stuff like that. But I wanted to give people time to kind of get through the stuff that we've already uploaded this week, which I still hope that you do. Because, on this platform here, we do put out quite a bit of content. So we try to spread it out as much as we can. But today's topic, though, is something that I truly believe that it was just, I'm seeing what's happening. And I think it's very important that we have as many voices as possible calling this out for what it is. And what am I talking about? This gaslighting that has been happening for a very long time to desperately try to get Black people engaged, involved in, and really in the middle of this whole illegal immigration debate. And for some reason, they're trying to get everybody's attention in Minnesota. Never mind the fact that they have been deporting people by the tens of thousands all over the country. But some reason they want everybody's attention in one particular place. So that's very interesting. That's a conversation to be had a little bit later on. But for today, we're going to talk about, is all of this really working? Is this working when it comes to getting Black people involved in this? Is it time for Black people to kind of get off our quote unquote high horse and start getting involved in the illegal immigration debate? Well, we're going to look at that, and we're going to look at these. Recently, what's come out is Don Lemon. He was arrested along with a few other Black journalists. And so, like I always say, none of this is coincidental. Everything's scripted. We live in a very scripted world. In a video that we did earlier this week, we talked about how we live in a world full of stories. And so this is also a story. And so, yeah, we're going to get into it today, and we're going to give people a little bit of time. Let's give it about a minute or so, and let's get people in. Let's see, and try to get my music together here. Where's my music? Okay, let's see. Oh, here it is. Let's go ahead and get started, you guys. Welcome to this broadcast. I'm so glad that you guys can join us.
Oh, yeah. Matrix, we all dance at a masquerade ball. Don't like your mask, just switch and no one gon' call it at all. Yeah. Got a closet full of shoes, but none of them fit. Trying on personas, man, I'm tired of this skit. They say find yourself, but they hand you a script. How you gon' find truth when the lie's been equipped? I'm tuning out the noise, can't hear no more. Time to meet the man I've been ignoring at the core. He patient, he wise, been waiting on me while I was lost in what they wanted me to be. I'm not your illusion, not your projection, not your borrowed dream or your reflection. Been living in your story, now I'm breaking free. No more playing dress up in your fantasy. I'm not your illusion. Yeah. Alien, Indian, king, queen, the chosen one, the list goes on. Every label they gave me feel like a costume I got drawn upon. In this matrix, we all dance at a masquerade ball. Don't like your master switching, no one gon' call it at all.
All right, about another 30 seconds and we're going to start.
Got a closet full of shoes, but none of them fit. Trying on personas, man, I'm tired of the skit. They say find yourself, but they hand you a script. How you gon' find truth when the lie's been equipped? I'm tuning out the noise, can't hear no more. Time to meet the man I've been ignoring at the core. He's patient, he wise, been waiting on me while I was lost in what they wanted me to be. I'm not your illusion, not your projection, not your borrowed dream or your reflection. Been living in your story, now I'm breaking free. No more playing dress up in your
All right, another 10 seconds and we're going to start.
They told me in church, we're here to worship, but I never seen a goldfish paying tithes and service. Maybe purpose ain't found in a building or a verse. Maybe heaven just a silence when I listen in reverse. See, I've been scrolling through the roads they made, swiping through personas like a masquerade parade. But there's peace in the pause, truth in the still. When I sit with myself, I remember what's real. He's got.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get into it. Thank you so much for tuning in to the broadcast. Remember, make sure you check out our website, sambatree.com. Again, that is sambatree.com. If you go to the our post page, remember we have a free download for you. You know what to do when you're snowed in. I'm sure that in a lot of these places, you guys should be able to move around and all of that now, particularly if you're in an area that's accustomed to getting snow. And so you should be good to go. But still, just because you're snowed in doesn't mean that you need to be locked in, like sitting in your chair and just looking outside and that's it. You need to be very mobile. You need to be agile. You need to make sure that you're taking the things you need to be taking, you know, just when it comes to herbs, when it comes to all of those things. Very important for you to keep your body very active. Another thing I would say as well is make sure that, you know, I know it's cold out depending on where you are, but at least spend some time sitting by a window. All right. You got plenty of sunlight coming in. And you're doing your breathing exercises. We always talk about that. Remember, doing those breathing exercises, starting your day off right, setting it in order so that you're not overwhelmed by all of this nonsense that's out here. Now, we're going to take an approach like we always do when we're talking about the news, you know, we're going to take an approach where we're going to talk about it, but we're also talking about it from a point where how can we hear this, but also protect our peace at the same time. And I think this news item, this main story that we're talking about here today is a perfect example of that, because more than ever now, we're living in a time right now where we have a lot of powers that should not be, that are vying to be the best energy vampire they can be in your life. And right now they're using the whole illegal immigration thing and, you know, trying to get the whole nation all whipped up into some kind of whatever frenzy. And how dare the United States enforce their own laws? I mean, you know, this is the United States, you know, for goodness sake. And we're supposed to welcome everybody and all of that. Let me just tell you something very clear here, because I want to set the stage up right. And I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page when it comes to the differences between us as Black Americans and everyone else. And when I say everyone else, I'm talking about illegal immigrants. Because as I've been saying on this platform many, many times, and I'm going to continue to say it, I am done with the comparisons that people are making, particularly a lot of Black folks I'm hearing. And usually the Black folks I'm hearing, those are the ones that are like the chatty class, right? The boule types. They will oftentimes use the history of Black Americans and try to make these comparisons to try to make it seem as if, well, you know, just like America fought for you, you need to fight for them, that kind of stuff, right? So we need to set the table up right when it comes to that that whole line that they usually try to feed to us, because no, it is not the same at all. And what I did was I tried to compile it the best way I could, because otherwise I will spend the whole entire hour just on that, because I get very, very frustrated when I hear people using this, doing this comparison here. So just give me a moment. I'm just pulling up my notes here. And then we're going to go ahead and dive into this, because, yeah, enough of that. We're not going to do that at all. Good to see everybody that's here in the chat and are watching. Really appreciate it. If you're not a follower of this channel, you are encouraged to, you know, to check us out or whatever. And if you like what you're hearing, you know, follow would help, but you don't necessarily have to. I'm not going to beat you down on that. Okay. But just wanted to extend the offer, you know, extend the welcome. Okay. So here we go. So for anybody that's out here that want to try to make these comparisons between Black Americans and what we went through versus what, the illegal immigrants, I've gone through this before, but I wanted to have something very succinct and something that, it just hits all the bases here. So number one, no, we're not the same. And this is a very obvious thing because, yes, we may be humans and all of that. I get all of that. We're all part of the family of man. I get all that stuff. But here's the thing, is that our starting conditions were very different. We came to this country as slaves, okay? We were literally ripped away from our cultures. We had no way of going back because the people who sold us into slavery, and I'm talking about the Africans that were there, be it in Ghana, Nigeria, all those kingdoms up there, even down in Angola or whatever. Those that sold us to slavery, they made it very clear, don't come back. And we've actually did a video on this. I think it's in Ghana, if I'm not mistaken. It's either Ghana. I'm pretty confident it's in Ghana. It could be Nigeria, but I'm pretty confident it's in Ghana, where they actually had a tree where they basically, or the elders would pray this prayer basically saying, never remember this place. Never remember that where you came from. The elders were praying that. Okay, so that's that. So we had they sold us into slavery to these people who then again did whatever they did to us, resold us into slavery. And then you know how history goes with that. Okay, so we did not have any place to return to. Now, the culture is still there, regardless if they prayed a prayer over us or not. We still maintain that culture, and we just created our own on top of that, okay? So that's clear, okay? So unlike someone that's coming from, and I know the Mexicans always get picked on this, but hey, there's a lot of Mexicans that come over to this country illegally. You can go across the border. You can go back across the border. You can come across the border again. You could do that on any day of the week. You could do that, you fine, and there's usually no problems. Now they've tightened, substantially, the rules and stuff and how you can just jump back and forth. I mean, yeah, they've done that, but let's make this a little bit wider. If you're in this country legally, and you legally by means of basically you were born here, but your parents were immigrants, you can get on a plane and you can fly directly to the town, the village, or wherever your family's from and point to your grandmama, your grandpa, your cousins, and all of that. For us as Black Americans, we don't have such luxury. We're just glad just to be able to go and visit Africa. And, a lot of Black folks, Black Americans who do recognize that we're connected to Africa, Africa is, we try to look at a little bit of everything. You know what I'm saying? It's no like, okay, my village is here, my village is here. We don't know. I mean, we have some general ideas, but that's it. Okay, so I want to spend time with that for the ignorant folks, and I'm saying that the kindest way possible, who want to try to make as if there's some kind of comparison. We were completely cut off. You were not. All right, so the starting points were different. I'll just go over some of this here. Enslaved Africans were forcibly captured, transported, and owned as property. They had no legal personhood, no wages, no right to leave, no right to family integrity. This was codified in law over 240 years, followed by 100 years of Jim Crow. So there's no immigrant. I don't care if you're coming from Mexico. I don't care if you're coming from Somalia. I don't care if you're coming from Afghanistan. I don't care if you're coming from Ukraine. I don't care where you're coming from. If you are in this country illegally, you cannot try to create some kind of comparative argument that compares to our experience. Okay? So let's get that straight. Okay? If you're going to be in the house, we got some house rules, and we're going through them right now. Now, when it comes to people who came in this country illegally, well, let's look at what the rights that you have and how you were brought in here. Okay. You entered the U.S. by personal choice. Even if driven by hardship, you retain legal personhood, nationality, language, and cultural continuity. And you were not owned, you were not sold or legally classified as property. Okay, you didn't have to go through any of that. All right. And then for us, citizenship was not given to Black Americans. It wasn't something that was given to us. All right. We had to, let me go through the list here, the things we had to do, the things that we had to endure and go through in order to get the citizenship that we have today. All right. There's a distinct difference, and I want to be very clear with this. We had to fight a civil war. Over 600,000 Black Americans lost their lives for that. So we had to fight a civil war. We had to endure black codes, lynchings, racial terrorism, those things. We had to go through that. This was our pathway. We had to push through the Reconstruction era. You know, when after the Civil War was lost and all of that, we had to re-find our place all over again in this society that was quickly rebuilding itself and already building these Jim Crow or economic walls. It was already doing that. I mean, that was a priority number one. So we had to find our way through that. And in many cases, many of our people migrated out here in the West. Some went down to Mexico. Some went to, Canada. Some got on a boat, went to Liberia and other places in Africa or in the Caribbean. But we had to figure out, it was like musical chairs. We had to figure out our way. And many times, unfortunately, our people lost that game of musical chairs. All right, we had to survive Jim Crow, redlining, voter suppression, and segregation. And then we had to lead a century-long civil rights struggle just to access rights already written into law. All right, so this is what we had to go through. Now, for those that are in this country illegally, well, let's see what you had to go through. All right, you just sought entry into an already existing legal framework. You were not required to dismantle a racial caste system to be recognized as human. And you were not burdened with repairing a nation built on their unpaid labor. Okay? You didn't have to go through all of that. Let me continue here. I'm just going through here. Yeah, but there's more. I mean, but that hits all the core things right there. But I just wanted to be very clear with all of this. I need to be clear with all of this. We're going to make sure we set this table up right if we're going to have this conversation. So what we're seeing happening now is we're seeing the Boule class, particularly in Black media now. They have been frantically been trying to find ways to get Black attention, Black American attention into this whole immigration thing. And they want to hear our voices fighting against ICE. Now, a while back, I did a video. I wish I thought about it, and I wish I could play it for you, but I think I tried to play it before, and then they gave me, they told me it was a copyright thing with it. But this was a documentary that I have a copy of, and I'm glad I'm talking about this because I am going to add that to our digital library. I'm glad I just make a mental note because this is a very good one. And basically, this documentary is about how it talked about they focused on the movements of the 60s, the protest of the 60s. And it was given by all of these different ones who were leaders in that movement or at least participated in it. And they were talking to this one particular guy, a white guy. He happened to be Jewish because you had a lot of Jews that were involved in those movements. But this one particular guy, he was talking about how in the movement he was part of, he was saying, and this was in Berkeley. This was on the campus of Berkeley. And this was this was in the 60s. And he was talking about how he was saying that we had all of these different movements going on, these different student movements that was going on these college campuses all across America, but particularly in Berkeley. And he was saying, it was mostly white kids that, and they were just whatever. He said it was very disorganized. He said the passion was there, but that's it. It was very disorganized. But he said, but when the Black Panther Party came on the scene, he said the moment they showed up on the scene, he said it brought everybody to attention. Now, this is his words, not mine. He said it immediately brought everybody else to attention because they saw when the Black Panther Party came in, there was something about them that it brought order. It commanded respect. And so he said when the white people saw that, these young white people, kids in these movements, they saw that, they began to rally behind the Black Panther Party. And that's one of the reasons why the Black Panther Party, in part, it kind of lost their way years later for, trying to uphold everybody. But this is an ongoing theme that on this platform, if you're new to this platform, this is an ongoing theme that we're going to continue to get into a lot deeper. Because I have been talking about how I told you, we are digging deeper and finding out, we're having these conversations about consciousness. We're having these conversations about African culture. We're having these conversations on why is it that when we look at music, for example, why does it do what it does? But particularly within African culture, you notice that the centerpiece of African culture is the drum. Now, a lot of people, like I told you, they'll look at the drum and think, oh, it's just an instrument. But no, this is a multifaceted thing that reflected who we are as a people. One of the things I talk about is in nature, and I'm not trying to get too deep, the importance of recalibrating yourself every day. When I talk about, for example, doing your breathing exercises, exposing yourself to sunlight, expose yourself to silence, those kind of things. What you're doing is that you're recalibrating your nervous system back to what it should be. You understand what I'm saying? Which is in alignment with nature. Now, when you look at Black or African-based culture, for example, the drum was the bass line. That was part of the bass line. And from the drum, it just, everything else, when you look at from our artwork to how we dance, everything else, our cooking and everything else, it all comes from that. And it's just us. We embody things. We embody when it comes to mathematics, when it comes to science, when it comes to all these other things. We don't just read something off of paper and just duplicate it. No, we embody it. So I'm just going to look silly here for a moment, but, back in the day, I was a lot looser then. But, we're the ones that doing all that, all of that movement and stuff we get, done, I'm not going to try to do it. But we literally embody these things. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what they saw when they saw the Black Panther Party coming in on campus. There's just something about us. It's like the baseline. It is. It doesn't mean that we're more important than everybody else. It just means that's what we bring to the table. Okay? So I'm saying all that because this demonic system that's out here, they have recognized this for a very long time. And they always lean on Black folks to be the baseline for all of their movements, regardless of what it is. They couldn't get feminism. They were trying to get that on and popping, but they couldn't do it until they got Black women involved. And they first approached Black women. What's her name? She talks about it. She said, when I first was a CIA operative, she said, when I first approached Black women and trying to get them involved in feminism, she was like, they didn't want to touch it. Black women were like, they knew better then. But, they kept working on Black women and finally got Black women involved in feminism. Until now, we're in 2026 now, where you have, not all, but there's numbers of Black women out here that say, well, we don't need a man. Well, where did that come from? You understand what I'm saying? So all of these different movements we can point to when it comes to abortion, when it comes to a lot of these other movements, they always will try to get black people involved. They do. They may call us all kinds of names, treat us like trash, make fun of us and all that stuff. But they know at the end of the day, they always got to get a black person in the center beating the drum. You understand? So it brings us to this issue here, what we're talking about with this illegal immigration stuff. Now, I just went through a whole list here, and I just told you about all of these things that differentiate black Americans versus immigrants. Now, all immigrants aren't bad people. I don't think that at all. I think someone will be very dumb to even say that. But the reality is that you got one group of people that came to this that was already here, and we had to go through literal hell to be where we are today. Fortunately, we got the paperwork now, so we're good. Then you got another group that came in that basically has a red carpet, and they are given every opportunity to use our struggle, to use what we went through and almost like a punchline in order to get enough acceptance to get the benefits and all of that. And then once they get to a certain place, then they can stand on the side of the majority population, point their finger at us and say that you guys are nothing but lazy and you should work harder. Now, again, are all immigrants like that? No, they're not. But there are many who are. And so what we are witnessing today is just that. Black folks are starting to wake up. Black Americans are starting to wake up and saying, I'm not getting out there. We done did all this work. For what? For what? We're not obligated to do anything. Now let's look into this Boule class, and then I'm gonna get into some of these videos that I collected just, over, last few hours with Don Lemon getting arrested and all this other nonsense. We're gonna look at this. Now, what's happening now up in Minnesota is it all started off with the whole revelation that you had all of these Somalians that came over to this country and basically were raking in millions and millions and millions of dollars of government money and literally building an entire community. And they have a very large community, and they were being defended by the local government. Now, let me tell you something. You cannot find any instance within Black American culture where something of that magnitude has happened. Now, they have given us, you get, loans that are available for small Black businesses, or, empowerment zones, that kind of thing. But this kind of monstrosity that they built, this was going up to the highest levels of government, where these people were building a whole network. I want you to understand what they were doing there. They built an entire economic network where money was being, not just in that community, they were sending millions and millions of dollars to Somalia. That's what was going on. They were sending the money they were getting from government. Whose government? You and I. Okay? That's who the government is. We are. That's who pays their bill. They were taking government money or taxpayer money, and a good part of it was being laundered to Somalia. And why is this interesting? Because guess what happened in Somalia? Well, basically, Israel came and said, okay, Somalia, we're going to carve out a little place here, and we're going to help you guys identify. We're going to really make you Israel Junior, basically. And Somalia is like, well, whatever, we'll do it. We identify with the Israel folks. And so now Israel effectively controls a slither of Somalia that Israel had already said from jump. They're going to use that little clip of Somalia, and they're going to funnel all these Palestinians that they're pushing out of Gaza. And they're going to funnel a lot of them. They're trying to push them all there. Why? Because they want to turn Gaza into a whole beachfront paradise. See, they want black folks to get out here and scream and holler and lose your freaking mind, but nobody wants to talk about this. And when they talk about the what you call it, when you talk about what was I getting ready to say? Yeah, they just when you talk about black media, and that's why I'm getting ready to bring them up. They don't talk about any of this stuff. They don't bring up the fact you want to talk about ICE. Okay, are you going to get mad at the fact that were you getting mad when what's his name Obama? He was pushing this stuff. Let's take a look here. I have a video of Obama right now when he was president. Let's go back. Let's go back. This is Obama when ICE was under him. And let's pull this up here and let's find out. The mainstream media, they weren't really saying too much. Black media wasn't saying too much. It wasn't no issue. No issue at all when Obama was doing this stuff. Let me pull this up here. Give me a moment. They weren't bringing any of this stuff up. There's no ICE issues, nothing. Everything's fine. We cool. Here we go. Let's play what Obama had to say.
In the immigrants' rights community who have argued passionately that we should simply provide those who are illegally with legal status, or at least ignore the laws on the books and put an end to deportation until we have better laws. And often this argument is framed in moral terms. Why should we punish people who are just trying to earn a living? I recognize the sense of compassion that drives this argument. But I believe such an indiscriminate approach would be both unwise and unfair. It would suggest to those thinking about coming here illegally that there will be no repercussions for such a decision. And this could lead to a surge in more illegal immigration. And it would also ignore the millions of people around the world who are waiting in line to come here legally. Ultimately, our nation, like all nations, has the right and obligation to control its borders and set laws for residency and citizenship. There are those in the immigrants' rights community,
Okay.
who have argued.
So there you go. So that's Obama. So Obama, it was no problem when Obama was doing this, but now all of a sudden Trump doing the same thing. Of course, he's going a little bit harder on it, but nonetheless, he's doing the same deportations that Obama was doing. Black media ran complete cover for that. It was no issue at all. I don't recall that even being any kind of issue. They would say a few things, but nothing like what we're seeing today. Nothing like what we're seeing today. Now, all of a sudden, this is where black media has become very irrelevant. And when I say media, I'm talking about black mainstream media. So let me get that. Let me just say that right. Let me now, as you know, Don Lemon was, the news is he's arrested. And he may have gotten released by now, not sure, whatever. But what they are spinning out here is that Don Lemon, and let me give you their line, and then I'm going to show you a video that shows you the truth of what actually happened. I actually have two videos that I want to show you. So basically, Don Lemon, who I will mention that, and I think is relevant, who is married to a white man who uses his platform on a regular to say very derogatory things about white men in particular, but yet he chose to marry one. Now make some sense. Like I don't even understand how people can even look over that. That's like me getting up here and every time I open my mouth, I'm always talking about how bad black women are, but yet I'm married to a black woman. Because the question that normal people will say was, okay, if you don't like black women, then why did you marry one? I mean, it don't even make any sense. Well, likewise, he's married to a white man, and every chance this man gets, he's saying some very derogatory things about white men. That's just what he does. But he married one. But anyway, what they are spinning is that He's a journalist. He's an independent journalist, and he was just observing what was going on. There was a protest that took place, and he was just simply observing what was going on at this protest. And, you know, Trump didn't like that. And so Trump decided to turn into Darth Vader and basically arrested him for just simply covering the news. That's all he was doing. And then there's 3 other people, black journalists who were likewise there. Or at least I know one of them was. I can't speak for the other 2, who likewise that were covering these protests. So what I want to do now is let me drop in here this video that I was able to get that actually shows, you know, Don Lemon, and he filmed this. Like, I don't understand. How do you, it's just, y'all, maybe some of y'all can help me out. Todd, somebody can help me out. I don't quite understand in this day. I really am. Maybe I don't know. Y'all really help me out with this. And I'm really asking, how do you do something like, you know how on social media, how you'll see people committing a crime and, and they're filming it and they upload it and they're like bragging about the crime they're committing. And then when they get arrested, they're shocked. Like, I don't understand that. I mean, it doesn't even come to mind if now I'm doing anything bad out here, but I'm just saying that just doesn't even add up to me. Now, what he's doing, it's, you know, if we got some legal eagles in the house, I'm sure they'll say it's debatable, but we're actually going to look at the law here on this. But first, I want to show you the video, and then we'll just go from there. Okay, so let's look at this video that he filmed, he uploaded, and let's go from there.
I can't see anything on
That's
that
okay,
side.
I got it. Just park. Just hit park.
Twitch, we're back. Sunday morning church.
Yeah, okay, we'll see.
We're after we do this operation, you'll see it live. And these operations are surprise operations. Again, can't tell you where they're going. Okay, so I am going inside now. Where's my phone? I need my phone. Hey, Meta, record. So activists are now in the church. This is what the First Amendment is about the freedom to protest. I'm sure people here don't like it, but protests are not comfortable. And there are people here who are, I'm looking at a young man who's in the corner. He's frightened, he's scared, he's crying. People are leaving church. One of the members who looks to be really upset, a young person, the pastor is trying to calm him down over there. Perhaps they should come in, pray together, and talk together. But anyways, if I were the pastor, I would offer a prayer. I would try to calm things down and say, listen, talk to you. We're all citizens. We're all believers and Christians. It may look like MAGA coded, but there's a reason they have so many white people here. I'm just going to be honest. It's because of the operation that they're doing today. It's important to have allies, as they said, white allies here. So that is what I could say. I turned our camera off of them because they're giving some critical information here. But there we go. Everybody's ready to go.
I don't necessarily agree with everything that's going on in the Twin Cities right now, but I don't think it's good to fight fire with fire. I think it's good to speak up, and I think it's good to protest, but I think it's better to do it in a peaceful way. I don't think the answer is going into God's church.
You don't think this is peaceful?
Well, it's trespass.
Nobody fighting.
It's trespass.
I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
okay, but listen, we live there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest. I'm surprised that law enforcement has not showed up yet. We're going to take you outside of the church. What do you think of this?
There's a harmless Christian here that wants to praise the Lord with my son, and now I got to go home.
Yeah, that was interesting to watch. This guy here, look, he's hugging his kid. And, you know, I imagine it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but again, careful, it's very slippery right here. Yeah. It's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but that's what really, careful, please, really slippery, not kidding. That's what protesting is about, and so
So yeah, so he filmed it himself. This is all his stuff. You know, I couldn't help but seeing DL on there. Anyway, side joke there. But anyway, he filmed it himself. And you heard what he said in the video. He said, after we complete this operation. He said that. So he's in cahoots with these protesters who went inside of a church. They literally went into church while they're having service. And I'm assuming the reason why they went into this church was, I'm sure that, you wouldn't go in there if they were pro, immigration. So the pastor may have said some things about, the whole thing that he was actually in support of ICE or something. We can only assume based on, the fact that they were there. But here's the point. You're going to go inside of a church while they're having service, and you're going to do all that. And you are a member of the press working side by side with these people. And here's another thing here too. Let me share this with you. Let me see. This was here. This is another picture here. This is him. I don't know if this was before or after, but this is Don Lemon right here, giving a kiss to the protest organizer. Now, how is that you not involved in this? How are you? That is not helping your case, Donnie. That's not helping your case. I thought you was an independent journalist that was there to observe. How are you giving a kiss to the person that was the organizer? And take a look at the organizer. I think I have a video clip of her. It's a black woman. I'm telling you, I told y'all, listen, as I said, listen, I did not vote. Well, I did vote in this past election. I did a write-in, but one person I did not want to see was Kamala. I didn't want to see her to get elected because I knew that it would empower this kind of stuff. We would see a lot more of this. And I don't know if you guys have been keeping track. I have to write it down, but I have been mentally keeping it track. But all over the United States, I have been tracking black woman after black woman after black woman after black woman, elected officials getting arrested. These are elected officials for doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And this all has been happening in the span of months. But I've been keeping track. What I probably will do later on, if I recall, later on, I'm going to actually put a whole list for you on our community post page, so you can see for yourself. But I knew that it would just continue. It would even get worse. I knew that, and I didn't want to see that happen. But anyway, here's another video that someone did. They actually was he's commenting on this same video. I think it's a video that has a different angle. It's got some extra things in it, but I want you to hear his take on it. Let me see if this is the dude here. Let me see. Yeah, this is it.
Let me do this.
All right.
I can't see anything on
That's
that side.
Hold on. So he's going to look. I may not play the whole thing here, but I do want to play part of it here. Let's take a look at this video here. Hold on. Close some of these things out. Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. I want you to take a listen, some of the things he had to add to this.
I got it. Just park. Just hit park.
Just what we need. Don Lemon showing up on the scene in Minneapolis and inserting himself in the middle of a church with a group of protesters shutting down the service.
If you guys are here, make sure you hit the like, make sure you hit the thumbs up. Let's see what our folks over on Twitch are doing. Twitch, we're back.
Sunday morning church.
Yeah, okay, we'll see.
He follows a group of protesters into a church. I don't know who thought this was a good idea.
After we do this operation, you'll see it live. And these operations are surprise operations. Again, can't tell you where they're going. Okay, so I am going inside now. Where's my phone? I need my phone.
This is only going to make things worse. This is crazy footage.
Hey, Meta, record. So activists are now in the church.
So we're hearing the hands up, don't shoot, same as the BLM protests.
This is what the First Amendment is about the freedom to protest. I'm sure people here don't like it, but protests are not comfortable.
But your freedoms cannot impede the constitutional freedoms of others, and freedom of religion is one of those. This
Right.
doesn't make sense. I can't believe I'm even saying these words. You can't invade a church.
And there are people here who are, I'm looking at a young man who's in the corner, he's frightened, he's scared, he's crying, people are leaving church.
Don Lemon seems happy about this, the fact that someone's cowering in the corner, scared of the mob.
Right.
One of the members who looks to be really upset, a young person, the pastor is trying to calm him down over there. Perhaps they should come in, pray together, and talk together. But anyways,
Does it look like they are willing to come in and pray and talk?
if I were the pastor, I would offer a prayer. I would try to calm things down and say, listen, talk to you. We're all citizens. We're all believers and Christians.
You think they're all believers? How could you possibly know that? That's such a silly claim.
I don't know if everybody is, but everybody's a human being. Let's work together and talk about these things.
So what do you think is going to lead to more dialogue? This team mentality that you're participating in?
It may look like MAGA coded, but there's a reason they have so many white people here. I'm just going to be honest. It's because of the operation that they're doing today. It's important to have allies, as they said, white allies here.
And there's an interesting clip of him grouping up with these protesters, and this guy asked him, which team are you on? He actually used the word team. And of course, we know which team Don Lemon's on. He loves this game.
This is a white supremacist agenda.
Why do you say that?
Fuck off.
No, dude, I'm
You're
not
on
here.
Whose team are you on?
Come on, man.
Don Lemon.
This is Don Lemon.
All right, man.
All right, well,
Sorry, brother. I'm so sorry.
Like, really?
No, I'm so sorry.
He's on our team.
Yeah, so why do you say that?
He's on our team, so treat him like a real human being.
And there is a member of the church who's willing to talk to Don Lemon.
Church?
What's that?
You're a member of the church?
I do.
How do you feel about this?
I don't necessarily agree with everything that's going on in the Twin Cities right now, but I don't think it's good to fight fire with fire. I think it's good to speak up, and I think it's good to protest, but I think it's better to do it in a peaceful way. I don't think the answer is going into God's church.
You don't think this is peaceful?
You're shutting down a church service by shouting people down.
Well, it's trespassing.
Nobody fighting.
It's trespassing.
He just doesn't contend with the trespassing point at all.
How would you feel if I went into your house and I started yelling?
It depends on what I did.
It depends on what I did.
Right.
You would never tolerate someone coming into your house.
There's a lot of yelling in my house growing up. We still loved each other.
Yeah, but
You can see it on his face. He's just like, yeah, okay, but you really think this is okay? This is the worst part, the way he is trying to justify all of this.
that doesn't necessarily mean that yelling is the answer, right?
I'm sorry?
That doesn't necessarily mean yelling is the answer, right?
No, but I think that's the way you work things out is that you talk to each other, you disagree. Sometimes it's heated, sometimes it's not.
Let's look at this other clip, and you
Right,
tell
this is
me
where I
if
wanted
is
to-
not just blatant yelling.
You're living real life, nice lives with your lattes, doing absolutely nothing for your Latino and Somali brothers and sisters. You come here to a man wearing a suit. Is a preacher? Did Jesus wear a suit? Did Jesus profit off the words?
I think
So do you see that? That's the part I wanted to get at right there. So that's the other, yeah, that was the clip I wanted you to see. That's how they came into that church. See, I'm showing you stuff that a lot of these other people that you're going to see, they're not mentioning any of this stuff. They just want to get black folks all riled up and all bought in. But most black Americans would not have done that. Not at all. We will, listen. Do you understand how many black folks are on this platform alone, just on YouTube alone, that are extremely critical of the black church? I'm in that line. But at the same time, as critical as I may be when it comes to the black church, you'll never see me go into a black church while they're having service and start doing stuff like that. I wouldn't do that. And most black folks wouldn't do something like that. Because as I've been talking about on this platform, when it comes to the church, for better or worse, it does still have a place that a lot of black folks still revere. You understand what I'm saying? For better or worse. But those are the kind of things, we wouldn't do that kind of stuff, but Donnie would. And he wants to put a black American face on it to try to make it seem like, well, these, black folks, they're not going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then you want to play a little race car kind of situation. You'll see. No, this ain't nothing to do with the race car. No, it's about. See, if I was offline, there would be some other words I would use, but I'm gonna keep it good. I'm gonna keep it 100. I'm gonna keep it. I'll keep it straight. Okay, he ain't straight, but anyway. But we don't do that kind of stuff. But you're trying to put a black face on it. Okay, so anyway, the video goes on. You see what happens or whatever. Well, the Trump administration, I think they tried the first time. I think on the local level to, get him arrested, over this, because it's like, no, this is wrong. You can't do that. And then he was like, and then that didn't work out because the local judges, they're all barred in and, they weren't trying to hear that or whatever. But then I think what was happening is they're going through the federal level at a much higher level, and they put it through a grand jury, and the grand jury saw what I just showed you. And based off of them, they said, yeah, I think there's enough here based off of what's called the FACE Act. All right, the FACE Act. And I'm gonna explain to you, I'm gonna read to you what the FACE Act is, okay? That there is enough here where he may have violated that, okay? So let me just read to you real quick what the FACE Act is, okay? The FACE Act is short of the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. Is a U.S. federal law passed in 1994 and signed by Bill Clinton. It was created mainly because in the early 1990s, there were many serious incidences of violence, bombings, murders, blockades, and threats directed at abortion clinics, doctors who provided abortions, staff, and patients trying to get services. The law makes it a federal crime, meaning the U.S. government can prosecute it, not just local police, to do certain harmful things on purpose. What the FACE Act actually prohibits in very simple terms. Using force, the threat of force or physical blocking to injure someone, to intimidate, scare someone, interfere with or stop or seriously hinder someone. When the reason is because that the person is trying to get or provide reproductive health services, they said this includes abortion, but also other pregnancy-related care like counseling and fertility treatments. So as you can see, it's mainly written for abortion clinics, which is very ironic in of itself. Doing the same thing, let's see, force, threat, or blocking to interfere with someone trying to practice their religion at a church, synagogue, mosque, or other place of worship. Let me read that again. The FACE Act is also applicable to doing the same thing. If you're, it's like if you're forcing yourself in their situation, if you're threatening them, if you're blocking them, and you're interfering with someone trying to practice their religion at a church, synagogue, mosque, or other place of worship. And then it can also apply to like if you're intentionally trying to damage something, which at least in the video we didn't see they became violent. But this point I just read to you, if you are trying to be obstructive, if you're being obstructive when it comes to like I said, it was primarily written for, abortion clinics, but it also has gone through this law has actually been tried in quite a few court cases out here. You can't so the bottom line is you cannot just barge into a house of worship. I don't, synagogue, mosque, with church or whatever. It doesn't matter. You just can't barge in there and just do whatever the heck you want to disrupt what they're doing. No matter if you agree with them or not, the preacher, he can be a white supremacist, right? And, saying some of the most vilest things against black people. That still doesn't give me the right to just barge in and tell him to go to hell or something. I can't do that. You understand what I'm saying? There are other ways I can vent off my frustration or my disagreement, but I cannot do that. That is not lawful. And what we saw and witnessed in that video clip is we saw Don Lemon literally out of his mouth saying that he was part of an operation. This was an operation to go in and to obstruct what these people were doing in their practice of their religion. Now, black folks who jump into this argument and see that there's nothing wrong with it, let me remind you that this is a very dangerous game to play. And this is something that I mentioned many, many times before. And that is that if you feel like, and I'll give the case in point was this, and I talked about this the other day. You remember some years ago, and this was in, I believe, this was when Biden was in office. You remember the big thing where they were tearing down the statues and stuff? Now, again, I told you on a personal level, I care less one way or the other about these statues because I don't pay attention to any of them anyway, right? But I do understand the sentiment of, we do need to move past that, as far as like having General Lee and these, Confederate soldiers and all that kind of stuff. But it ain't wrecking up my day one way or the other if they're up or down. But a lot of people, and this is FBI and, all the different letter alphabet groups or whatever, they needed to create yet another distraction to try to get black people in the center of it again by going after these statues. We need to tear down all these vestiges of the Civil War and all of that stuff. So they did all of that. And then you had some black folks that was involved in it, but I would say it was probably mostly white people. And you remember all of that? Black folks were like, yeah, that's right. You go ahead. Now fast forward, hit the fast forward button. We're in 2026 now. Guess what's starting to happen now? Well, Trump is now saying, okay, y'all did that. Let me truck up here to Philadelphia and start tearing some of this stuff down. And again, I don't like that either. I said that's horrible and that's insane, it's racist and everything else. It's terrible. But if you're going to play that game, play the game from a position of power, not in the position that you're in right now, because you're going to lose every time. And likewise with these people here trying to insert themselves, and these are the, let me bring these individuals up here, trying to insert themselves into this debate here, and then they find their behinds being thrown into jail. Well, that's how the game is playing. What else did you think was going to happen? It's this woman, Georgia Fort, and then these other two individuals here too. Now, she was at that protest as well. I can't speak for these other two individuals. I don't know if they were there or not, but it just says that they were arrested, for filming the protest. But again, I'm here to bring some clarity because they weren't, at least in Don Lemon's case, he wasn't exactly filming. He was an active part of the situation. Now, this woman here, this is the woman I showed you earlier that Don Lemon was kissing. This is the woman they're saying she was the organizer of that protest. And this is a short video clip. I want you to take a listen to her wacky logic. Take a listen.
We had belly chains around our waist, and we had handcuffs with bars in the middle. As someone who majored in African American studies, I can tell you that is the closest I ever felt to slavery in my life. Being shackled as if I was a slave. It is unacceptable and unconscionable, but it's on brand for a while.
Well, again, you put yourself in that position. You 1,000% put yourself in a position, and it don't matter if you got a degree in African American history or not. Nobody needs a degree in African American history to be stupid. Okay, you chose that. You chose the route to be stupid. You chose the route to put yourself on the front lines of a cause that has done nothing to benefit Black Americans. You chose that. You chose to put yourself in that position. So you wanted to do slave play? Well, guess what Trump said? Okay, here's your chains. Here's your jumpsuit. You want to play slave? Okay, play the game. Because you're about to find out. And that's exactly what happened. And so I can honestly say most Black Americans don't care. They don't. The only people I see out here on social media that are crying about all of this right now are the boule types. That's it. Those are the only people. But regular Black Americans, nobody's caring about all this. Here's Mark Lamont Hill, the fast talker, a Philadelphia professor, and he's going to go in. I can't play, but I cannot stomach this dude at all on any level. But I'm just going to tell you like it is. But here you go. Here's Marc Lamont Hill commenting on it. I'm just going to play a few minutes of him.
This administration doesn't care. They have continued to pursue Don Lemon, looking for a reason to justify his arrest. And last night, Thursday night, January 29th, when Don Lemon was covering the Grammys, entirely unrelated. He's in Los Angeles covering the Grammy Awards. Suddenly, he gets taken into custody by law enforcement. The FBI, again, was involved. The HSI was involved. And of course, that's Homeland Security Investigations. They're basically the investigative wing of ICE. They come in and they also are going after Don Lemon. This is despicable. This is absolutely despicable and inexplicable. You can't explain this. We know about this because Don Lemon's attorney issued a statement. Abby Lowell said, "Don,
you're taking too long. I'm sorry, I ain't got time for that. Anyway, let's move on because I can't. I told you I just don't. I don't have enough in me. Y'all pray for me, whatever you got to do. But I just no. I just can't. I can't. Not with him. I can't. I've tried, but I just cannot. And if you watched us yesterday in our last broadcast, the reason this, let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I can't stand people like that. Because see, it's jackasses like that. You got all the mouth in the world for something like this, but you won't say a doggone thing about people like this. And I can put together a whole list for you. A whole list. There's another list I can put together for you for Black Americans who have lost their lives because of people who came into this country illegally. And I don't see anybody like people like Don Lemon. I don't see anybody like Marc Lamont Hill. I don't see anybody like the Congressional Black Caucus. I don't see anybody. Not one of these boule Negroes, ashy lip looking Negroes. I don't see not one of them saying a doggone thing about these individuals like this young lady right here. Right here. Let me play it here. DeCara Thompson from Maryland. She was the taken advantage of. I can't use that word, murdered, and her body was discarded over a bridge into freezing water by an illegal immigrant. She would still be with us to this very day if it had not been for if the government was doing what it was supposed to do, and that is enforcing the borders. This young lady would still be with us today. They would still be with us today. Oh, that's just one story. That's just one story. Then I got this other story here too that I talked about as well. Young girl, DUI crash. Sorry, right here. I played this in the last broadcast too. Sharonda Collins. Not Sharonda Collins. Sorry, Ivory Smith. Ivory Smith. Young, pretty girl. And her life was taken from her because someone that came into this country illegally figured that he felt so free that he can drink and get behind the wheel and took this woman and this young girl's life. And the thing that really, really burns me up is that these stories happen a whole lot. And these organizations won't say a doggone thing about it. But the moment these two white people get hurt in these ICE protests, now all of a sudden everybody's got to get involved. Everybody, Black folks, we got to take center because two white people lost their lives. Again, like I said, I don't like hearing about someone losing their lives. I mean, who does, right? But that shouldn't be the bat signal to get Black people involved, especially when it's an issue that it's not it doesn't concern us. Not at all. If anything, the issue has worked against Black folks. Let me see what other video clip here. And here's another one. This is a city councilwoman, another Black woman. I'm telling you, they line it up. And it's a common thread that I'm seeing. I'm seeing mostly Black women who are leading the charge on this and men who are very effeminate, Black men who are effeminate. Those are the two types of people I'm seeing that are being the loudest voices on this. I want you to take a listen to this woman.
And we're protecting me. And we have witnessed in the midst of our love for one another, our dynamic public love as Minnesotans, we have witnessed the federal government use yet another tool to try to get us in fear. They are trying to tell us that it is now a crime to film your neighbor being abducted. That it is a crime to...
It's not a crime to film it. It's a crime when when an officer is executing on a warrant. You cannot stand in front of, between the officer and the person that he's trying to arrest. You cannot stop him from what he's doing with a camera and think that you're not going to be taken down. It just doesn't work that way. Okay, you can't do that. So again, it's how these people, how they word things and try to make it seem like, oh, they were just standing on the corner. Now, I'm completely aware of the fact that you do have cases where an officer will say, put that camera down or whatever, and you across the street, you ain't doing nothing. Now, as black folks, we know that stuff happens a lot. Okay, so let's keep that clear. But the cases she's talking about, no. These are people who have actually put themselves in between the officer and the person that was trying to arrest, and unfortunate things happen. It's just it's going to happen. Anyway, here's another black woman yet again. I don't get it. Putting a cape on yet again. Let's take a listen to her.
This is a state of emergency, and I'm wondering where our leadership is. Where is Governor Walz? Where is Mayor Fry? Where are all of our representatives? And if you want to run for office and you're not standing with community, you don't have a shot. I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm tired of standing up here. And Georgia is a wife. She is a mother. She's a business owner. She's a journalist. She should not be in jail right now. And everybody should be outraged about that. This does not make any sense. This is real trauma. This is not a joke. Trump, this is not a show. This is not a game.
I can only take it in small doses, Sean. Small doses. It's Friday. I can only take some of this stuff in small doses. But I just wanted to give you just a taste on that. Let me see what else I have on this. Let's see. Here's another guy. This is another dude that, again, it's like, dude, why you got the pick in your hair? I mean, why you got the pick in your hair? I mean, is that supposed to solidify your blackness or something? I mean, you're not a musician. Anyway, listen to this dude here. Listen to him. He's part of the elite.
It is an expression of white supremacy. And so when I look for constitutional justification for these arrests, it's obviously not in the Constitution. It's obviously not in the Constitution anymore. Because there was something in the original Constitution that would have allowed them to arrest a black journalist like Don Lemon. And that was called the Fugitive Slave Clause in Article 4 of the original Constitution, which allowed the government to reclaim escaped property should that property have successfully made it to a free state.
How are we now at the Fugitive Slave Clause, y'all? How are we now at the Fugitive Slave Clause? I showed you exactly what took place. This is Don Lemon here. This is the fugitive slave that he's talking about here. Let's listen to Donnie again. Let's listen to the fugitive slave and talk, and as he laments his life as a fugitive slave being married to a white man.
Entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. And they think that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom. It's religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male, pretty much. And so, yeah, I absolutely 100%, but it's an intimidation tactic. And, I said, I don't understand how I've become the face of it when I was a journalist. I do understand that I'm the biggest name there. And I'm also, as I was on with my producers this morning, you and Kylie talk all the time. My producers were saying, I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, Don, you're a gay black man in America.
So now he's the face of all of it. You see how that works? And it's interesting they choose a gay black man. It's interesting. It always pivots to that, don't it? Always pivots to all of that. Y'all, this is what I'm talking about. And y'all, listen, we love black women. Or let me just say this. I love black women. Okay, how about that? But let me be clear, because I'm going to be honest with you too. Not all black women. Just like I don't love all black men. I don't love all white men or white women. I'm going to be, there are some filters that I have. And as we're bringing this to a landing here, this broadcast, there are some filters that I have. You understand what I'm saying? And I'll make that very clear. But this goes back to what I'm just something else I'm going to show you right now. It just goes right back to it. I don't know. This is becoming an epidemic now. There are numbers of black women who are elected into office, and this is what I've said, that are now getting all called out. This is why we're seeing a lot of the haterade going, oh, we got to get Trump out of there and all of that. And again, I'm not up here defending Trump or anything like that. Again, don't like the man at all. But there are some things that are getting exposed, though, with him being there. And one of the things we're seeing is a number of these black women who are elected, they're getting exposed, like this woman here, Oklahoma Democrat Representative Aisha A.J. Pittman has resigned and pleaded guilty to 3 felony charges, including forgery and conspiracy, after submitting a fake check to the state's Ethics Commission to dodge repaying misused campaign funds. And I know some of y'all gonna look at that. Well, she look kind of Asian, or maybe she gotta look. She black, okay? At least she using it. And one of the reasons why you know that is because of the color she's using. She's wearing the pearls and the green. That tells you exactly, she's definitely AKA. And that so they tell on themselves all the time. These people the Boule tell on themselves all the time, and they're very proud of that. There's another woman that was just arrested recently, black woman. I think it was in the Carolinas somewhere, where she was using funds that were supposed to go to helping other people in her constituency to get houses. Well, she was using it for herself. It's I can go through this all day long, but the so-called black media, they won't cover it. They won't talk about it at all. Where do I have, let me just look at this here, and then we're going to bring this to a whole close, okay? Because I didn't even know I was going to be on there this long. But let me get, let's see where this thing is. It's right. Oh, what did I do with that? Was that under, hold on for a second. Oh yeah, here we go. It's right here. Sorry. Here it is. I was looking right at it. Here we go. National Association. Oh, I'm sorry, not the National. This is the Washington Association of Black Journalists. Of course, they had to come out with a statement, and they said the National Association of Black Journalists have released a statement on the alarming arrest of journalist Don Lemon and Georgia Fort. Well, they're probably members, and so they have to come out and say something to protect their members and all of that stuff. But again, as I said earlier, these same organizations won't say a doggone thing about how these stories, how this whole immigration thing, how it really impacts Black Americans. And I left a comment on there basically saying, well, if they were focused on the issues that Black Americans were actually concerned about, they wouldn't find their behinds in jail in the first place. They wouldn't even be in jail. This wouldn't even be an issue. So don't try to gaslight us into trying to get in us, oh, they coming after Black people now. Because you see, they've been trying that for a long time, trying to say, well, Black people, you got to start speaking out and start saying stuff because they go after them first. Then they're going to start coming after you. For what? For what? We got a whole history of they coming after us, but we're still here and we're still very much legal. That's not our fight. It is not our fight at all. But to bring this down, and now we're landing now. To bring this down to home is this. The reason why I wanted to do this is a reminder to you, the reminder to our listening audience is don't allow these people out here, these asshats out here, to try to pull you out of your peace. Okay? Don't allow them to do that. Don't allow them to try to pull you into a fear construct where you just, oh my God, I got to have that talk with my son, or I got to start having that talk with my daughter again, because when we go outside, who knows, they may get snatched up by ICE and all of that. And no, they are not. That is not the case. You do not need to do that as long as you are, acting like a normal human being for the most part in this country. The overwhelming majority of black folks who are law abiding usually end up home safely just about all the time. We have a very high rate on that, and we don't like talking about that. We only like to focus on the ones that got caught up, maybe in doing something, not just minding their business. Those things, yes, we do need to address that. We do need to talk about that, and we need to deal with those things. I'm not saying ignore that, but the overwhelming majority of black Americans who are law-abiding and do, just going about your business or whatever, we end up home safely. We can go to any store we want and shop wherever we want. We're not dealing with Jim Crow. If there's a store that says, I don't serve your kind, we're like, okay, which butt cheek you want to kiss? Because I'll just take my money across the street and go over there. See, we have those liberties now. You understand what I'm saying? They try to come back and be like, well, on second thought, well, you better keep talking, whatever, because I'm done. We have those choices now. Our ancestors didn't have those choices. They had to, you had to figure it out. You had to try to work with these people, but now we have choices. And when the choices aren't there, we have the liberty and the freedom to create our own answers. You understand what I'm saying? But there are people, there are powers that should not be, and no, they're not all white. You got a lot of black folks who should not be in the positions that they're in, that are geared towards trying to pull you into fear, worry, being scared, and all this stuff, and trying to convince you this is our fight too. It is not your fight. It is not. My hope is, if someone in the sound of my voice, if you're in this country illegally, my hope is go get your stuff, go get your paperwork together. And I understand, as someone who has a family member who had to go through that process, and now they're a legalized citizen, I do understand that it does cost a great deal of money. I understand that completely. However, if you can't afford it, that's fine. Go on back home, get your money together, and then come on back and then figure it out. You understand what I'm saying? If I were to go to your country, it would be no less. I'm just talking about just basic stuff. But these Negroes want to throw themselves in the middle of it and thinking that you're going to be the next MLK letters from an Alabama prison or Montgomery prison moment. Black folks ain't thinking about that. You on your own. You understand what I'm saying? So don't allow these people to bring you into that, okay? Protect your peace, right? When you hear these stories, and just keep scrolling, if anything. But I just wanted to, when you hearing this stuff where they trying to make it seem like these black journalists were just somewhere just filming, as I just showed you with Don Lemon, it was a little bit more than that. They were, in Don Lemon's case, he was actively involved in the middle of that. And that's something that even black journalists, the ones that we were supposed to be depending on, they won't even acknowledge that. This is why platforms like this are very important, because we need real people telling the whole story and allowing the viewer or the listener to make up your own mind, but making up your own mind based on all the facts as they're known, not some agenda, okay? Because this whole immigration thing, it is multi-level, layered. There's a lot involved in this, and it's not just a simple black and white issue. There's a lot of nuances in there that we need to really understand. But on the face of it, black Americans, this ain't our issue. So that's it. That's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to this broadcast, which I wasn't planning on having, but I saw this and I got concerned because I don't want to see my people getting caught up in some other nonsense. All right. Hey, listen, you guys take care, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.
From the leaf to the bottle, yeah, we slow it down. No rush in the process, we let love come around. Yeah. Sun on the flavor, lime in the blend. Once you taste something real, you don't play pretend. Ain't no shortcuts, ain't no disguise. You can see it in the color, taste it when you try. Grown folks sip, yeah, it hit just right. Daytime cool or a warm late night. If you know, then you know what I mean. When it's brewed real slow, keep it clean. Let me tell you what it is, my friend. Brewed, not powdered. Fresh, not pretend. Summer tree.